Hello, it's me, Mr. Nichols. I wanted to make a video for the 1302 class because this week all we had was one day. We had Wednesday, and wasn't too much of a fan of that. Didn't have quite enough time for me to feel confident that we'd covered all the concepts. So I wanted to make a video to, I guess, more thoroughly cover the syllabus, more thoroughly introduce Blackboard, explain more details about why I, have the coronavirus feelings that I have, and then some stuff about the textbook, because the textbook, I've found out some stuff since we last talked, and that's going to be a big issue. This will all come up through the course of the conversation. So I think it's important that those who came to class maybe watch this video as well and skip through to the parts that you realize that you haven't seen before. Probably when I get to the part of the syllabus where I reach the textbook. In fact, I might even do that right when I get to Blackboard, because we spoke the other day, I think, and I talked to you about the textbook, but things have changed since we talked. So, because I found out something at the bookstore. So I wanted to have this little video where, I don't have the restriction of like a mask. You can take as much time as you need skipping through here. But I'll hit a bunch of different little things, little assignments. At the end, I'm going to assign the essay assignment, which I will talk about a little bit next week, but I'd like to not spend too much time on it in each class. If I have to, I will, but I'd like to be able to talk about the literature next week. That's what I'm looking forward to. Hopefully you would too. But let us go ahead. And I'm going to go grab the textbook real quick. You won't see this to be like old movie magic. But here we are. So, movie magic over. I wanted to take you first to Blackboard. And I guess rather than show you mine, I'll once again go into, let's go into Magnus Baraka's, my fake student's Blackboard page. Your course will be student ID, age, your birth date. You all should know that because you've been, if it's English 1302, you've been in PJC before. So if we go right down here to English 1302, you'll notice that it says textbook is the 3rd edition. Best bought from bookstore, syllabus updated for let's go to the announcements first, even though I haven't ever seen any of you. This would not very well function, I guess, as a video that was introducing people for the first time to the course. But because we're in a situation where every single person in the class is taking the class face-to-face, we can have the time to do stuff like this. So it doesn't matter if I start with something that is not from class. So textbook the 3rd edition from the bookstore. So basically, and I don't know, I don't have to go through the announcement. You can read the announcement in detail if you want to. But yesterday in one of the classes, I held up this book and I said, hey, this is the book, guys. And somebody said, well, how do we get the book? And I said, well, go down to the bookstore. And the student said, but the bookstore is not open. And I went, oh, is it still closed? And I was just like, well, it must be still closed again. It seems like every time I try to go down there too, I'm just out of luck. So what happened was I went down to the bookstore. It was about 4 p.m. I also went down I think it was on Tuesday. I went at like 4 p.m. and I noticed I missed them again. I was like, man, I missed them again. But yesterday I went down, it was like 1 or 2 in the afternoon, and I noticed it was closed again. I was like, how are they closed in the middle of the day? Like, isn't this when they should be open? And I looked at the sign on the door, and it said open 8 to 5. And I was like, well, that's interesting, because I haven't seen them open at all. And it says Monday through Thursday. I thought they had reduced hours, but literally there seemed to be full hours, and nobody was there. So I was like, that's strange. So I go ask John Shestine, who's the director of the Greenville Center. I said, hey, John Shestine, when is the bookstore open? And he says, oh, it's not. And I was like, well, I didn't know that. I said, how long has that been the case? How long have the bookstore been closed? And he said, well, I mean, since the COVID thing started, it hasn't been open. I was like, oh my gosh, so how do our students get their books? And he says, well, the Paris bookstore is still operating. And I said, they have to drive to Paris? I said, my students are going to drive to Paris to get books, and they shouldn't have to drive to Paris to get books. And he said, no, it's online. So you can get the books from the online version of the Paris bookstore, which is run through a textbook publishing company, or not publishing company, but a textbook bookstore company called Follett. But the link from our website will take you to the Follett. But they're used to selling textbooks. This is not like some shady operation where it's just our website and there's like how much should I trust a school website? It's really going out to another bookstore. So somebody has built a store and is very knowledgeable of those things, and that's where you go for that. So what I'm going to do now is take you to the Paris Junior College main page. My apologies. There we go. You've probably used the quick links before on the main Paris Junior College website. It's right here. We're going to be using the research papers, library services a lot later. Financial aid is probably important to a lot of people. The COVID-19 updates, you might go there and check out. Or, hey, if you want to drive to the bookstore after we have this conversation, drive to the bookstore. But the way you can just go to the bookstore online is to click here, and you'll notice that the website up in the top left corner changes if you watch. Bookstore. So you can see like it's a different company online. And there's all this like flashy animation that's trying to get you to buy stuff in the middle, but where we just need to go for our books is textbooks. Once you click there, you can have Greenville Campus Fall 2020, and I'll actually close out these other courses I looked up earlier, and I'll type in, because this is English class, English 1302, section 400, that's our section. And then if I say find materials for this one course, what we see is what happened when I looked this up in class the other day. So students asked, and I told them, hey, just go to the online bookstore and you'll find it. And I found it, and it says arguing about literature with code, which is what I had told everybody, arguing literature with code. But this says, third edition. And I was like, I'm using a second edition. And I had been told that when we have new books, because one semester I had gotten all my syllabus ready for like a brand new book, and I was told by the department when we had our Paris meeting in the fall, and this was a few years ago, they said, oh, no, we don't switch to the new edition of textbook because it's the best interest of our students to, as long as we're allowed to, stay with the old textbook because then they can buy used, and it's a little cheaper. And I was like, well, that's a good idea. I like that. And I said, so even though there's a new textbook out, we're not going to be using it yet? And they said, no. They said, we have some time. I was like, okay. So from then on, I assumed, we'll always just be told, when we go to a new book. And so I'll keep using the book. And then if a new book comes out, they'll give it to me. Bing, bing, boom. And then if we get the new book in, they'll tell me when we start using that book officially. So fast forward to last night, I texted my department head and I said, hey, I got on the website and it seems to show the bookstore's not open. I only can access the online bookstore. Online bookstore shows third edition of the book, which I had a copy of, I think, somewhere. But I didn't know where at school. I didn't see it. And I thought I would just message my department head and she would say, oh, no, it's still second edition. We're still in that deal. And I said, okay. Turns out that wasn't what happened at all. Is that we're at the third edition. Do you not have a third edition? I said, I wasn't told. Like I've been telling my students, I still have it on syllabus, it's second edition. She was like, oh, no, that's not good. And I was like, no. But I guess she thought that the email that was sent to her this summer about how we were switching editions was to all English faculty, but it only came to her. And so we didn't all know yet. And I found out that another teacher in Paris, I think, had the same thing happen to her. Where she found it in class that she had the wrong edition of the book. So I remembered I got like a review copy sent to me up here, and I looked around the house because I think I had brought it home to look through, and I did look through it, but had put it back in like a crate of mine, and I found it. So here's the actual textbook, the third edition. Now, I think I had said something along the lines of in class, whatever the bookstore's selling, that's what we're using, because that's what I've been told before. So if the bookstore changes books, I'm changing books. And so the bookstore changed books, I'm changing books. This is the book. This is what the old books looks like. See, I told you it always changes color through an edition. This was gray. This is white. So this is the book we will be using for this semester. I wanted to film this video that I'm filming now yesterday, but unfortunately I ended up spending all of my time going through the entire syllabus and making changes to the paging, and I had to change some of the poems that I already planned on using online links that I was able to find. I had to scratch one of the poems because I couldn't include it. And I had to go one of the old poems that I had to get rid of because it wasn't in the new book from an old book. So I had to do a whole lot of switching around, updating of page numbers, changing out stories and poems, all kinds of stuff. They removed Auden completely from this textbook, which I find strange. Additionally, they tried to move Blake, the tiger, which I guess they got rid of because people were having religious discussions. And I guess they were getting heated. Love Song of Joffred Prufrock, which I guess because they feel, and To His Coy Mistress, that they are demeaning to women. But I've always thought that the poems were, as you'll see when we get to them in the course, because I have them back in, I don't think they're demeaning to women at all. I think that the main characters of those poems are meant to be painted as ridiculous so that we're supposed to look at the men that we're reading as people we should be making fun of or who aren't approaching life correctly. And if you're saying, well, but they're still just writing about men, I mean, it's a man writing a poem, so I mean, I don't see what perspective he's supposed to write from. It feels false if I think a writer were to write from a perspective that's not theirs if they didn't feel confident enough to do so. And given that this one poem was written in the 1930s and one poem was written in the 17, 1800s, it just doesn't. It wouldn't make any sense to write from a different perspective at that time. So instead, they wrote from a persona of a male who was going through silly things. I don't know if that was the issue or not, but this is a textbook. Additionally, this will come bundled at the bookstore with this code, Writer's Help 2.0. You will not find anywhere else online this textbook bundled with this code. Really, the only place to get it would be at that bookstore. If you try to buy this book used, one, it's relatively new, so you're not going to find a whole lot. And even then, if you had to buy it with the code, you're not going to find it with the code unused. If anybody has this code and tries to sell it to you, you have no guarantee that it's not already used, unless the seal is broken on the side. And you can't verify that if you buy it online. So if you buy it new is my suggestion, because it's the cheapest price. The 104 actually, you would probably have to buy them separately for, like $70 for the code and like $50 for the book. If you buy them separately, it'd be $120, and that's not going to work. So I would just buy them in the bundle that the bookstore has. And I have all the literature in the first few weeks is literature, and I've always designed it this way, where if you weren't able to get the books in the very first couple of weeks, you could get by for a little while, and then later get access to the books for the stuff that is less likely to be found online. So this is the place you will go. You'll check it. You'll say, I want this. You'll add the item to the bag, view bag, and check out. You notice it says there's more stuff in the bag, but it's because this is the 1302 book, and I was earlier showing this book to the other students. So remove that, remove this, and boom, you see with tax and stuff, it's like 104.75, or maybe not with tax, but it says financial aid is accepted. You just check that at checkout, and I think you have to log in through your account and stuff, and it'll accept financial aid. One other thing that you can't do if you go to like Amazon or something, you can't say, hey, can you use my financial aid for my school? I don't think they have that ability. So that's the bookstore issue. From here, I actually want to go to Blackboard again and get us back into the course. There's some things I had to cover relatively really quickly. This video link right here will be changing soon. It'll actually be changing to something similar to what I have in the 1301 course, where I have this video, and like I was telling you before, I had this title card for a video, and it's going to say 1302 on yours, and I'll talk about Blackboard. I'll go to syllabus assignments, and then I won't talk about the narrative essay. I'll talk about our evaluation census essays, and I'll give a little bit of talk again about coronavirus. So I'm going to get back from over here, go back over to 1302, and then, like it says here, I told you in the class I was going to reorder this, and I did. I do think it's most important to go through the syllabus first, then do the syllabus quiz. Afterwards, there's the information form. I think I'm going to do a separate little tutorial video that I'll release next week to show you how to do 3 things that are important to the course. One is the just how to upload a document and submit it from like Google Docs or Microsoft Word, and also how to create, to record a YouTube video and post that YouTube video on YouTube to then link and make available on the Google form. And by the way, a student asked us today, I'm the only person, because you're submitting a form to me, who will see those intro videos. So you don't have to like worry how that's being perceived by other people because they're not going to see it. So I'm going to probably provide a tutorial on those 3 technological items next week. And you'll fill out the form, and if you have to wait to do that video, you can just put, going to attach this link later, and that'll be fine. Step 6, Step 7. And then you go up here to weekly course content, which I told you would be coming soon. It's here now. Now, every single week you go to will not have everything filled out. So each week you go to the folder, you'll see the stuff for that week. I believe, too, I used to have it where all of my discussion posts were gone and my quizzes were gone after the class. There actually will be, I will lock out the discussion post, but I'm going to keep the quizzes open. So you'll see a link here, but it'll say you can't go to that discussion post link, and I'll have a time at the end of the semester where you can catch up on the ones you've missed. But I think it's very important that everybody read and respond to the literature as we go. That way you develop your own opinions on it. I do not want people to become just a little parrot of me, where you just say the things that I say and all of your opinions are my opinions. I hate that approach to literature. There are some instructors, I'm sure you had in maybe high school or since, that they said, like, my way of reading this is the only way of reading it, and anything that you read that's not my way is wrong. I am not that kind of person. I think engaging with the literature on an individual basis and figuring out how we feel about it is very, very important. Of course, there are wrong ways to read it. Like, if you read something into it that's not there specifically, like if you specifically, I mean, like if you are misreading a word or a concept, your reaction to it is still relevant, but you're reacting to something that you're misreading. For example, I found out recently that I had misread a word as having the wrong meaning in a poem, and I was like, oh, that changes my conception of it. There's nothing wrong with coming to those realizations later. There's nothing wrong with that at all. But you will need to be knowledgeable about what I say the answers are to these poems, even if on the discussion post you come up with your own conceptions. But anyways, that's the discussion post. Oh, it says a little backwards, isn't it? No, it's right. Introduce yourself first. You have the syllabus quiz. Introduce yourself. So this actually wasn't on the Start Here page. Was it? Let's go back and look. Start Here. Yes, introduction post. So the introduction post and syllabus quiz are in weekly course content, folder 1. And then after that, you have to read the readings for the week. It's something I talked about where there were some reading homework this weekend. You read Rose Frimley, Yellow Wallpaper, Barn Burning, which apparently I did not change the page numbers on these pieces of literature, but they're still in the book. They're just about 10 pages different, either forward or backward from what they were here. And I can edit those here in a little while and get it updated. But the discussion post link also shows the old, because I just pasted in the discussion post information from before. But if you actually click this discussion post, you'll see the page numbers are different. That's one quick way of going and seeing what are the real page numbers. There they are. Granted, hopefully I'll be changing that by the end of this video, but in the event that I forget, that's a way to find it. And then you do, after the discussion post, you can go ahead and finish out that information form that I talked about, because I don't think a lot of people will be done with it already. And then there's the assignment, the evaluation synthesis essay 1. This actually will be the assignment packet for all 3 of the evaluation synthesis, the one over the short fiction, the one over the play Antigone, and the one over the poems. But this is where it's located, and I will always try to, every time I have an assignment, that the day that it's assigned, I'll put assigned, and then on the day that it's actually due, that link will pop up again, same link, it'll just say due. So I want people to have that ability to be able to distinguish between the two and also have the link in both places at once. So I also have old lessons from the same week in previous semesters, even though I'm not going to get to any of this intro to lit stuff until next week. Because I only had one class and I didn't have to rush that class, even though I was rushing for other reasons, but I wasn't having to rush you because I'd already talked about stuff with the other group. So going back here to the start here page, let's skip down to the syllabus. And if you'll note, yesterday in class when you saw me, it said V1.0. I don't know if you remember back to that, but it said V1.0. I've updated this to V1.1, so all the page numbers I updated on the syllabus. I think I updated the textbook information. If I didn't, I'll do one more. Third edition. Yes, I updated the ISBN number. Good. So let's act like it's the first time we're seeing the syllabus, and we're going to go through this a little slower because I don't have to rush. In fact, I'll make this big screen because why not? Or full screen, not big screen. Teacher contact and textbook materials. So, by the way, this is 1302. Oh, does it say 1302 or 1301? Okay, good. Once again, email, best way to contact me. I think I had some emails that were sent to me earlier that I haven't replied to yet, but I plan to this evening. And then we have my office phone, which I'm required to include, but it's really not a great place to get in contact with me. Here are all of my times when I'm on campus. So you can see Monday, Wednesday, I have 2 hours, Tuesday, Thursday, 2 hours, or 2 classes. And then office hours, Monday, Wednesday from 12:15 to 3, same on Tuesday, Thursday. But then I'm here an extra hour on Wednesday from 2 to 4. And then Fridays I'm here as well sometimes. If you need to make an appointment where you actually meet with me in person, you're totally welcome to do that. You can do that through email. You can meet with me after class, and I'll still have you send me an email. One thing I haven't mentioned yet in class is that I'm very bad with remembering things if they're not written down. So the best thing to do is always send me an email. It's also best to have written down evidence of things. It's sending an email to me after we've had a discussion about something is almost like sending me a receipt. Like you buy something from the store and they say, do you have a receipt? And that's how you can return it. It's basically the same thing because you have that written proof that there was a discussion and you want to do kind of a little follow-up. And so it's a good idea to do that sort of thing in life because those act as proof of things. Here are the textbooks I mentioned. It's best if you've still got the Hacker, this book. I don't know that it was included necessarily on the bookstore, but the idea was that you would keep it. If you sold it back, that's unfortunate. We still use it for research. In fact, this book I used for research in a graduate course that I took because it was so much easier to find the information I needed. So you may end up even using it at that point as well. And then Arguing About Literature, 3rd edition. This is the Writer's Help 2.0. This is Arguing About Literature. You can see the white coloring, the 3rd edition up here in the top left corner. Right corner, your left. No, still your right. My left, I guess. Yeah. I apologize if you hate the look of my face, by the way. I would put the mask back on, but it's just too hot. So, this talks about making sure you have access to a computer and stuff. That was the purpose of the course, which is to produce improvement in writing, argument, research. We're going to talk about coronavirus-related stuff. I already mentioned this in class, so I'm not going to go over it too long. But the PJC has these rules for, having a face covering, which is disposable or cloth that covers the wearer's nose and mouth. You have to follow the social distancing practices and the signs. CDC's cleaning and disinfection, hand hygiene, and respiratory etiquette. And then pick up a disinfecting wipe on in the classroom and lab and disinfect their workstation prior to sitting down. I'm not very good at policing that so far. I really should. But the CDC's websites also said that it's very unlikely you're going to catch the virus from fomites, which are solid surfaces. It's mostly going to be respiratory vapors in the air. And the point of the masks is not to protect ourselves anyway. The point of the masks is to protect other people. One of the reasons I have all of you wearing the masks so religiously in class, I don't mean like as a religion, but dedicated way. In the class is because I really don't want my family getting coronavirus from my students. I'm afraid of what that would do to my opinions of the students as a whole, not knowing exactly which student gave it to me. because it'd be very difficult for me to get anywhere else since this is the only place I'm going. Incidental contact with anybody else in my life, like I go to Walmart, it's just like wandering by the cashier. That's about it. And even then, I go to the self-checkout. So it's very, very difficult for me to come in contact with anybody outside of here. And I haven't even been to Walmart in a week and a half. Like I'm not going anywhere very often. I can count on two hands how many times I left the house before school started back up. So please help me protect my wife and my unborn son and my two daughters, because it's very, very important to me that they all be kept safe, that my high-risk pregnant wife is kept safe, that my future son is kept safe, and that I can be at his birth. Because if I can't be at his birth, my wife tests positive for coronavirus as well, and the baby tests negative, as far as I know, what ends up happening in that scenario is that since the baby's tested negative, they try to keep the baby from getting it. And the best way to do that is to quarantine mom from the baby. And like, are you serious? Like, not having your newborn child for 3 weeks, that's unbelievable. Like, that's not acceptable. The policy may have changed from what I heard originally. It might not be quite so harsh, but if that was the case, boy, you don't know how mad I'm going to be. Like, it's kind of insane. I would be so angry if my wife had to be there alone with no child. Like, like you don't even know. So please just follow this stuff very well. And I'm going to go over here to the CDC website and even show you the kinds of masks we're talking about. I think I may have shown this in class, I may not have. But I want to be very clear here up front that CDC does not recommend the use of gaiters or face shields. Those are these types of masks. These ones that cover like that. Evaluation is ongoing, but effectiveness is unknown at this time. And the only study I've seen one study of those, and that showed that they were less effective than not wearing a mask, because people who aren't wearing a mask don't have confidence that they won't catch it, so they still stay socially distant. But these masks cause people to feel confident, and as a result of that confidence, they would get closer to other people and they would spread the virus. Face shields, those move the air, but they don't really protect people from the respiratory droplets. They just maybe go somewhere else, was what I've mostly seen from people, but it doesn't provide a cloth barrier by which to catch the respiratory droplets. It just redirects them. So really you should be using those with a mask if you're just trying to protect your eyes, because your eyes are technically a place where respiratory droplets could go as well, but you just can't. The best type of mask, cloth masks that have 2 or more layers of washable, breathable fabric that you well, goodness, what am I trying to say here? It's a breathable fabric that I don't know, completely covers your nose and mouth and fits snugly against the sides of your face and does not have gaps. And it says don't choose masks that are made of vinyl, hard to breathe, don't have the vents on there. I think I told y'all no vents. And then intended for healthcare workers, including N95 respirators and surgical masks, because those actually don't help protect other people. They only protect yourself, because they're meant to allow you to breathe out, but they won't let you breathe in. And if you're just breathing out freely, then the respiratory droplets can just get out. And that's not helping anybody. It says don't wear them around your neck, on your forehead, under your nose, under your chin, dangling from one ear, on your arm. And I've seen all kinds of students wearing it all those ways. The most extreme is not wearing a mask at all. So please don't be one of those people, especially not in my classroom. I'm going to do mask check frequently. Every time I notice that somebody's not got one on their nose, I found a nice way of doing it today. I said, let's just do a mask check. And I went around the whole room once I noticed one student had it. And then it gave that student an opportunity to not be called out. And I think that worked a lot better. So just make sure that you, now if you're doing it frequently and you're not checking it when I do the mask check, then I will point it out. But so from there, let's go back over here. Just please don't make me miss the birth of my son. Do the best you can to help me get to vaccine time. If we can make it to Christmas without getting it, we should be fine. Except that we might have to take like one little baby doctor visit, but they're going to be, I think, following protocol there, so we're not worried about going to doctor's offices, except for the people that are there. So Additionally, this means if my wife is pregnant at one random point during the semester, I'll be gone for about a week because she will give birth. And when that happens, we'll go switch to online, which is one of the reasons I want to have that course content folder as well, because that's going to help us out. Here, hold on just a second. Okay, so sorry, I had to excuse myself for a minute because I have this weird problem where occasionally an eyelash will go straight down. That's how it'll grow, and so I kept seeing it in my vision. It kept freaking me out. I kept looking over and decided to go take it out. But just make sure you don't give me this virus. Next, that's the catalog description and stuff and the purposes of the course. But it's a composition course, and I mean our goal is going to be in, elevating our level of thinking and in composing things more thoughtfully. So miscellaneous short exercise. Here's the grading policy. And I don't know if I mentioned this earlier, but if you need to get around the syllabus easier, one of the ways to do that is I've got all these clickable links. If you wanted to go straight to grade policy, you could. Or you could use the Control F function, which if you search for something specifically like grading, it'll find every instance of it in the document. So that's really useful. But I'm just going to go right back there. And we'll talk about all these gradings. So the main stuff you're graded on are the essays and research-related materials. So there's the research paper, 20%, the research presentation, which is 10%, and then the essay materials that aren't research-related, which is a critical analysis essay. No idea why I have that listed as CE. Maybe it's the critical essay. And then evaluation synthesis essays. Those are 15%, which is 5% apiece. So altogether, you can see that all accounts for 55%. And then there's the Launchpad Labs, which I have to make it worth at least 15%. And then the other two little assignments, the tiny ones, are the information form and reading quiz, or syllabus quiz. And then there's a final exam, which probably none of you are going to have to write because you'll be exempt from it. I'll explain more about that later. And the other thing that's going to take up some of our time, it'll be a consistent thing we have week after week, are the discussion posts and quizzes. So quizzes are worth 10% total, and the discussion posts are worth 10% total. It's 10 for 10, so there's 10 quizzes, 10 discussion posts. But it's going to help you write all of those other assignments a lot better. And it's a pretty simple, I think, grading system. The essays, of course, will be worth more, just so you know. Now, assignments and exercises, make sure you do everything in Blackboard, and it tells you the font here if you want to use like what font and style I'm looking for. Academic honesty requirements, just don't cheat on anybody. Don't let people cheat off of you. Attendance, make sure you come, but I'll be very understanding. So the flexibility here says that of reasons you have to be late or absence at times, just let me know. Especially if it's coronavirus related, it's basically going to be like it's never going to happen. You tell me, Mr. Nichols, this morning I coughed, I'll be like, stay home. Because if there's any worry about it and you can get people sick, I want to protect everybody. Withdrawal policy. So November 19th is the last date to withdraw the course and receive an automatic W. Email response. Generally through the week, I respond pretty well within 24 hours. Sometimes I don't meet that, but I try. And then Friday to Sunday, I may not answer. I'll still try to, but if I'm doing a lot of stuff with my family, and also I might not respond very readily during the week when I'm with my wife and she's had the baby. Technical difficulties. There's one thing that's not listed here, which I will go to, which is, I think, helpdesk at parishjc.edu. They can often help with any technology issue or issues with the website. I don't have that there because that's not listed in the official stuff, but that is one thing you can go to for technical difficulties. But you're expected to have access to a basic computer, and as long as you have access to Word, PowerPoint, Excel, or programs that can create files in those formats like Docs, Slides, and Sheets on Google, that would work for my class, but for other classes, I think you might have to have those specific programs for some reason. Class conduct, so just make sure you conduct yourself well. Don't be disruptive. If you need to be on a cell phone one day, it's up to you. You can spend your time how you want it. Just don't be disruptive of others. And then same with laptops and tablets. You can have them to take notes and stuff, but don't watch YouTube videos or anything during class. I've had that happen before with students, and a student failed. Not necessarily because they were watching the videos in my class. but because they were watching the videos, missing all my lessons when they tried to do the work, they did it very badly. They lost hope, and then they stopped. So it was all because they were lazy. But let's see. Food and drink, grade posting dates. There'd be no point in even bringing food this semester anyway, even if you wanted to, because you got to wear a mask the whole time. You can't really eat. So midterm, grade posting dates. So we do post grades at midterm and final. That means halfway through the semester, at the end of the semester. Oh, I apologize. I forgot I was kind of looking in front of a camera. Sorry. I was just for a second thought I was talking to myself. That was really weird. So, ADA statement. If you think you have some kind of disability, or you do have a disability, you can come down to the main office here at Greenville and talk to them and say, hey, I had this, or I have this. Can I get accommodations like I did back in high school? Even if you didn't have it in high school, but you know about something, they can try to do that for you. Now, major assignment types. I mentioned discussion posts. I didn't really talk about it in detail, but basically on a discussion post, there's an original post where you have to create a thread before you can see anybody else's threads, and it's a forum style post where it says you're supposed to just whatever interests you in the story or you find intriguing is interesting to talk about, but I want to know like your response to its meaning and/or analysis of its elements, something that you found especially interesting. Then other two people, and it'll have to be 100 words, and 2 people will reply to you, hopefully, but you have to make sure that you reply to 2 other people. When you do those 2 replies, it'll be all 3 of your things are done, which is your original post and 2 replies, and once all 3 are done, it will unlock it for me for grading. This is a good time to use the clickable links that I have in here, so I'll just show you that I've also included down here at number 9 these sample discussion posts. So I have one here that talks about a story that we're going to be doing a brief reading of, I think, next week, so that this will make sense. But this guy is talking about like how he felt about the story. This other guy's responding to him, and this other guy's responding back to him, while also keeping in mind that guy. And so they're only about that long. See, they're not too long. And actually, Blackboard has a word counter. So if you do write, like right around the bottom of the box where you're typing, like if this is the box, right around here, there's a word count, or it's like right around here. So it'll tell you how many words you're at as you go. Now, if I go back to major assignment types, let's see. Blackboard quizzes are multiple choice. There's 10 of them. I think you're familiar with multiple choice. It seems to be all of our pre-college education system is built on it. There's the information form, the end of course opinion post 1, and end of course opinion post 2. Oh yeah, reading quiz might be actually a part of the quizzes in this particular class, not done like that. So Launchpad Labs, I haven't activated them yet because I don't want to activate them until I've had a chance to talk to everybody about how they're going to go, and that's going to be next week, or I'll have a tutorial that I post. But the 3 evaluation census papers, one is about short fiction, one is about Antigone, one is about poetry. I'm going to assign those a little bit, so I'm not going to go into detail there. And critical analysis essay is probably the hardest essay we'll write, but it's kind of the opposite of an evaluation census. And then the research paper peer review is tied to the research paper. They're turned in on the same night. And the research presentation is done. Oh, excuse me. Is done a lot like the YouTube link that you're having to do for the information form. It's one of the reasons I have that on the information form, is so you can get some practice in. So that's the sample. I didn't realize it came right after the grade stuff. So then we have revision, which in my class, and in case you missed class and didn't hear this, every single essay that we write in this class, you'll be able to revise for higher points. So I keep yawning. I'm sorry about this. I can't stop. It's very strange. I'm going to try to take all these out, but there's no guarantee that I'll actually catch them all when I'm going back and editing the video. So the evaluation census essays, the critical analysis essay, and the research essay, but not the final exam essay because it's too close to the end and you don't have time to revise. All those account for 50% of your grades in the course. So I let you revise them. And the way I do a revision is every single assignment, you can revise up to the full credit of the assignment. So if you get even a 0 the very first time, but you revise it and I go, well, that would be the 95 paper if you'd written that first. Well, then your grade is a 95. You get to keep whatever the highest grade is that you get on a revision. So I think that's good. It encourages people to fix what they've done wrong and encourages you to read my feedback as well. That way you can see if there's anything you need to fix. Let's see, achievements. So there's also these extra bonus points you can get for doing certain behaviors. Not missing class is one. Not really getting here late very often, submitting all the essays on time. Getting an essay average of 80 or higher is actually how you keep from having to take the final exam. So it's very important that you make sure that you use revision as a tool to hope that you get, or help that you get the 80 or higher. Because that way you won't have to. I just heard somebody scream outside. That way, if you keep your essay average at 80 or higher, you want to take that final exam. And the final exam is hard. It's an essay, handwritten, but it's not going to be handwritten anyway. You're going to write it home, but it wouldn't matter. It's still going to be hard. Next, the Soulstone. So when you submit all essays on time and you receive a half credit on the grade on the first attempt, you have this rounding thing where I'll round even 87s up to 90s or even 77s up to 80s, which is useful for people who are really trying to get that A. And even though maybe you're not like the best writer or maybe you don't understand the literature as well, but if you're working really hard and doing everything you can, then you should be able to get an A, especially with that achievement. And also the 80 essay average is calculated before points are added from achievement, so don't go, well, I'm going to get those 10 points to my critical analysis, and that'll help me boost me up for my essay average. It doesn't work that way. You have to have that independently. Now, course set-based communication. So getrave.com/login/parishjc. That's how you sign up for Dragon Alerts. If we do happen to shut down for coronavirus briefly, that's where you will find out text-wise. I believe you'll get an email just for being in the college. So it's important to set up your Dragon Mail, but also come here so you can get text alerts on top of Dragon Mails. And I think they come slightly faster. And then my canceled classes, which I normally don't cancel class ever, but when my child is born, I usually will cancel about a week. Actually, I didn't have to the last time because I prepared a bunch of like lessons for in case I wasn't here. But then it turned out that my wife ended up not having the baby. And we induced literally the last day, the day after the last day of classes. So it was like final exam day, the very last final exam day one semester. Then we induced. It just happened to fall perfectly. And so this whole summer I got to be home with my wife. This time only 1 week. So we're a little worried about that, but it's going to happen. So it's just whether it happens, when it happens between now and the 16th of October. Email, again, best way to contact me. Get a professional one too. Don't go with like a cutesy name. Go with something that's just like your name. Especially since everybody has to put it on their resume these days. You don't want to have like Taco Boy and with like 4 Ys. You don't want that to be your email. So QR codes. If you know how to use those, you can use them on the next page. And then once again, one more time, email, best way to contact me. Don't send me emails that say like, "Are we doing anything today? I have work." There's no name or anything, and it's all in the subject line. That'd be awful. So, QR codes, if you know how to use them, you can use them. Coronavirus-related stuff. I don't have any online-only students, but that is if you want to read it. With my students, I've told you already, I've broken you up. Hopefully you wrote it in class and found out which group you were in and remembered that. But I'll let people know during this next week for sure, like what grouping they're in. So if you are, in fact, I can just look this up real quick. Hold on. Okay, so yeah, I got this worked out now. So 1302 is only one class of you guys, so I can just put it right here on the video. But Monday's only crowd will be the A through Escobar students. Anybody who's got a last name A through Escobar. And then the Wednesday only people are Everett through Z. So if we do add new students, those will go into those groupings no matter what. The only exception would be if we have somebody named Etio, which you'll notice that would fall right between Escobar and Everett. We'll still have to make a change for them, but the likelihood of that is probably like only I don't know, I guess take 2%, given how many letters in the alphabet and the likelihood that it wouldn't be another letter and then like would be between two other letters. It's just very unlikely. Probably even less, probably like 0.2%. Could happen though. But Mondays only A through S through R, Wednesdays only F through Z, and everybody will have the same lesson. The idea is that we will have the exact same lesson, and everybody will watch the same supplements each week. There'll be like an extra little video I put up there. Sometimes it'll be nothing but like a tutorial for how to do an assignment better. It keeps me from having to talk about it in class, and you can fast forward through it. Sometimes it might be extra stuff about the literature, which I would prefer to only talk about the literature in class, but you know, it is what it is. We'll do what we have to do. Never done a hybrid style format before, never taught with a mask on before, all kinds of firsts this semester that we're going to have to go through. You on the way to your future, me until I get back to the normal. And let's see. We'll be out for a week when my son is born. Okay, course calendar. I want to go through this little color coding first because it'll help you figure out how it works. The MESA assignments are in pink, and they occur kind of randomly. Pink is kind of there because they're like little baby assignments. That's why I chose that color. Purple is like the major essay assignments. So purple used to be the color of royalty. It was very hard to make purple. The only way you could do it was rounding up seashells. So I chose purple for major essay assignment because they're the biggest thing, the most important thing, just like royalty used to be. And then the other stuff is on a kind of color coding stoplight format. So you stop and do red assignments first each week. So that's the quiz. And the quiz will always follow the literature we just talked about. Then after you do the quiz over the prior week's literature, then you move on to the green, which is the readings for that week that you're required to do. And then you'll do the discussion posts over those green readings. So it's always stop here first, then go, and then slow down, do the discussion posts, and don't think about it again until we talk about that week. And then you'll do the quiz over that again, and then it'll be like that on a cycle, and you'll get used to it pretty quickly. There are a few works in here that are in blue. Don't do any of your discussion posts over it. So let's do an example week. So it says always stop here first. Boom. Quiz over the syllabus. Got it done. Good. Now I read the literature. Now I do the discussion posts. And there's the information form. But the idea is I want you coming up with opinions on your own in the literature before I've talked to you, because I really hate the idea of a teacher dictating to a student what they should think about something. I want you to think of college as a way to consider new ideas that might not occur to you naturally, not for me to just tell you new ones to replace the old ones. I want you to come to some of these conclusions or come to your own conclusions based on the information you're presented. That's my goal. So then we go to the next week, and you'll notice the discussion post over week 1 readings was done there. We talk about those readings next week. Then at the end of that week, we do the quiz. After that quiz is done over those literature readings, we can now forget those readings. Not forget them, because you'll need to write essays over stuff too. But now we read the next set of readings. And after we read the next set of readings, we discuss again those new set of readings. And the next week starts, and we discuss those in class. Then the new quiz starts, and so on and so forth. Now, let's go to the purple assignments, because those are kind of like, the whole course goes like that with the discussion posts and the quizzes. Let's talk about the purple assignments. They're the big ones. So I'm assigning the info sheets, which I've already talked about a little bit, the quizzes, and Launchpad, which I'm not putting up officially yet, and I want to overwhelm you all the first weekend. And then evaluation census essays 1, 2, and 3. So it's all assigned right now, but that just means assigned. It doesn't mean everything is due right now. I think I have to yawn again. Hold on. Merry Christmas. Okay. Next. You'll notice that these page numbers, if you remember, might be different than the ones that you saw in class the other day. And I think I already mentioned that I was going to try to change some of these up, but these are all different page numbers because I went last night and went through the whole syllabus and changed all the page numbers and stuff and some of the readings. Or at least found new ways to get the readings. So that was a little difficult, but it's all there. But I'm assigning the evaluation census essay in a few minutes, and then It'll be due Friday 9:25 by 11:59 p.m. Then there's 2 more weeks, and the next one is due Friday 10/9. I try to make all the essays due on Fridays, and sometime during the week I'll assign the new one. That critical analysis essay will actually have a very long video that you have the option of watching. You can watch some of it or you can watch all of it. But it's going to be literally almost about 2.5 hours because some students really want a whole lot of extra help on how to understand that paper. It's just a lot of, I think, work to do it right. Some students grasp it immediately. They go, okay, I get the concept, and they just do it. But other students are like, I still don't understand what you want us to do. It just sounds kind of like you want our opinion. I'm like, no, not that. Opinion was the first paper. This is different. So if you still feel confused, there will be lots and lots of stuff to help you along the way. But that paper is due Friday 10/9, and then the harder paper is done Friday 10/23. The very next class, I assign the research essay, and then the planning, which is the proposal for the paper, is due. I kind of want to change this to purple because it's research related. In fact. Okay, not sure if this is exactly the same size-wise, so I apologize if you just saw it shrink down or get bigger. But I wanted to make sure that all the research-related assignments stay purple. I think it's a little confusing if they have made them pink, even though they're a little bit smaller, and I want you to be aware that this is important. So after we've got the critical analysis due, we have the research assigned. Then the very next week is a proposal for it called the planning. After that, the very next week, it's really weird, but we have the third evaluation census due right in the middle of 2 research assignments, but it's because it's when we get done with the poetry that we would want to write it, so I have it due then. Then there's a peer review for the research paper the very next Friday, and then the research paper itself is due Friday 11/20. That is the last major work of the class, and you can see that there's week 10 readings here that you do then, but there's no actual any more readings in the course past that. We have where I discuss the research presentation with you guys and talked about how to do that. Then there's Thanksgiving, and then I will be up on campus the rest of the semester. In fact, I believe the other teachers are as well, but you'll be at home. So I'll still be probably, if I need to record videos in the classroom, I will, but you'll be not coming back, and I believe the idea behind that is because it'll keep you from having to wait. What is that? Campus closed for Thanksgiving too. Why does that say 2? I might change this again. I'm not going to change it during the video though because my wife wants me to get home because she said she hurt her back and she's pregnant. I know that sounds like I'm being a little flippant about it, but she told me not to worry about it. So she said just get done with your class video because I know you need to do it. So I'm doing it. Then we have online work at the end of the semester, week 13. There's nothing but 2 opinion posts due, so like the discussion posts, but easier. And then, like I said the other day in class, I switched the research presentation and the final paper revisions. So this will give us 2 weeks to work on our presentations if we have trouble figuring it out. It also gives you, like, once Thanksgiving is over, you can just get that thing knocked out, and then you don't have anything to worry about. Which is good, but the final paper revisions, this also gives you more time with your papers because if you need to get some last revisions in, you have until Friday 12/11 to do so. I really think it works a lot better all around switching it this way because somehow, even though I switched one where one's later and one's earlier, it still gives both assignments more time because the problem people usually have with time on the presentation is that there's not enough time to figure out the technology issues at the end. And the revisions is that I didn't have enough time to get the essays submitted because I needed more time in the semester. So it kind of figuring that out cancels it out. On the final exam, if you end up having to do it because you don't have an 80 essay average, you will have to turn it in by 12/15, so I have time to grade it by the 17th. But the thing is, hardly anybody ever has to do that because usually if somebody doesn't have an 80 essay average at that point anyway, it's because the student didn't turn stuff in, so they're already failing for some other reason, not sticking around and trying to get an essay average of an 80. They're likely not going to pass no matter what they do, so it doesn't matter if they write the exam or not. But that is the course scheduling. Once again, wife pregnant, October 16th due date. If it's not there by then, we'll be induced, and I'll be out for a week. So I'm going to try to make this class completely work online, answer emails when I can, but again, there will be a brand new infant As far as I remember, infants, they take a lot of, like, you have to do a lot with them. It's been a while since my toddler was, but I think like they're not very good at wiping their own stuff or feeding themselves yet, so you have to do some of that. I think yeah. My daughter now, she makes macaroni and cheese on the stove, like she's a boss. I'm kidding, man. That's none of that's true. Um, no, she's the boss, but she does not make macaroni and cheese on the stove. Syllabus quiz is super easy. You just hop on there, take it. If you don't feel like you did well enough, ask me to re-open. In fact, I think you have 3 attempts. How many attempts? Test allows multiple attempts. It says right there. I don't know how many. I think it's 3. But then once you get it done, you're happy with the grade. But if you do 3 attempts and you still don't get the grade you want, you can always email me and I'll give you one more attempt on it. That's not meant to be an assignment that traps you. It's meant to be one that, like, eventually you just understand the concept. So if you have to go through it 3 or 4 times, that's fine. Now the information form. No, I'm sorry, I got ahead of myself. Intro post. I showed you the sample discussion post, and I guess I could talk a little bit more about that now to talk about what's different about this. So I'm going to go back in here to the syllabus, go to the sample discussion post, super easy to do so, boom, and zoom in a little bit. So there's a story called Story of an Hour about a lady and her husband, and this guy said, I thought the story was pretty good, mostly because it was short, haha, just kidding, kind of. You can see, you can be a little bit informal there, it doesn't really matter. But seriously, I liked how we could see her true feelings through a physiological reaction. I mean, I probably would have been pissed at her if she just didn't like her husband and was whining that he was back. But the heart attack kind of lets me know that she truly felt oppressed and there wasn't really anything she could do about those feelings. I can't think of anybody that I know that would choose to just straight up die to spite their husband. So they felt more sympathetic toward the character. This next person says, I don't mean to be a jerk, but I couldn't disagree more. Why would you ever want a husband to stay dead if you were a good person? There's just something inherently evil about that. I would think whether or not the heart attack was under control, she's a monster. So he feels like because she had those feelings of oppression, where she was unhappy that her husband was alive, it made her a monster. And the other person said, I don't think he was saying that she was a good person necessarily, just that he can see where she's coming from. If she had chosen to murder her husband when he walked through the door, I think we can all agree that's absolutely nuts. Am I right? So he's trying to, be more on the side of the first guy. You don't have to be on people's side. You don't have to argue in such a way where, again, what's he yawning? Stupid yawning. You don't have to be to a point where you're taking a side or not taking a side. That's not supposed to be the issue. The issue is you need to make sure that you're just engaging specifically with what's being said and that you're giving a full account so that I can tell that you really read the material and understand it and are able to use that information. I don't want to see silly comments like, wow, I really liked what you said there. That was amazing. You were so brilliant. If I had a mind like yours, I would use it all the time. It's very important that we all value intelligence and education, and that way you're really not saying anything. You're just going blah, 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 because you need words. So please don't do that kind of thing. Show me you're really engaging in the material. Like, that's important to me. And so I mentioned that so that I can take you to this discussion post here. You create thread. You'll write your name like Magnus Baraka. And then you just, like in 100 words, say something like, hey guys, this is me. I'm really into video games and I like watching movies and I like to read books. I'm really happy with my VR setup that I have. My brother got me into it, but then once I realized the potential for it, I started saving up money and I got a computer that would run VR really well. I'm super excited about getting the RTX series graphics cards for my new computer later, but I don't have one yet. If anybody wants to play VR, you can come over to my house. Oh, wait, no, we all have to wear masks and there's social distancing, so guess I'll do that after coronavirus. Ha, 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 ha. I don't really care. But just something like that. It's like informal, you're saying hi to your people, and then and your replies, you say, hi, that sounds really cool. Oh, I always want to do VR. Is it fun? How do you do it? How much does it cost? And that's, something that people could answer. It's pretty expensive. But that's how you do the intro post. Now the information form, I'm going to take you to the link here, and it's going to ask me to log in. Oh, good, didn't. So this is how you fill out the form. Basic info, you say what class you're enrolled in. I realize it's strange to have you do a drop-down box, but I wanted to be prepared in case they added another course to me. It says this is a required question. Anything you try not to answer, you're like, I don't want to answer that. It's going to say required. That's going to be true of all of them. So you have to say something. And then what's my town? Let's go with, and I put as many towns as I've gotten, and if it's other, you just say what that town is. Note that the other answer is not required, so if you don't answer that, it's fine. And then things like major, your current job, like favorite places, movie, 3 life-changing experience, things you dislike, nouns that represent you. I just want to see like your ability to answer these questions and be creative on them if you feel like that's a thing. I want to see like the tone of you, what you're like. And at the very end, it says things like add a file. So upload a picture that represents you. That could be something like something you've always taken up as like a phrase that you love, or something you send people a lot. Like there's a picture from, where is it? Picture from Family Guy where Peter says, the book can also be a hat. And I've always liked that meme, so I would just post that in there. Picture of yourself. It could be, it says for me, it says here, the photo should not be filtered in any way that distorts the image beyond changes in the color of the image. So I really don't want like dog ears and stuff from Snapchat or anything like that, or crazy big eye filters. I just want to be able to put your face to a name and have it be your real face. You can wear like makeup. I just want to see like what you naturally look like when you're out in the world, not some big-eyed version of yourself. It's actually been shown that if you take those versions of yourself and like it filters you, and then you look like this in a filtered photo versus like real life, that you start to hate the way you actually look, and it causes depression and anxiety to go up. Same with all social media and having constant access to phones. That's been an effect on people. And then upload a 1 to 2 minute video. It says upload, but it says upload to introduce yourself to me. Now that you've answered all the, now if you need a little while to figure out how to record a video, upload it to YouTube, make it an unlisted video, and attach the unlisted to YouTube link. I kind of don't like the wording of that, but basically what I want you to do is, I should have said record a 1 to 2 minute video. So I might change that wording because not everybody's done it yet. Record a 1 to 2 minute video introducing yourself to me. I want you to upload it to YouTube, make it an unlisted video, attach the unlisted YouTube link to this form, and if you need to wait a little bit, you don't have it ready, you say, I will edit my response later or something. And then later it'll let you go back in and edit your response. So once you've recorded, you get it done, you put the YouTube link in here, then I will see it, and then once you submit the form and I've got it and I give you a grade for it, if you feel more comfortable this way, you can completely delete the form. Or not the form, don't delete the form. Delete the YouTube link after I've given you a grade on the assignment. Because I don't want people to feel like, oh my gosh, there's a video of me out there. Even though unlisted videos, technically speaking, they go on your YouTube account, but only people who have that link can see it. So if you've only ever given me the link, I should be the only one who has it. So you wouldn't need to delete it. There's no reason to feel uncomfortable, what I'm saying. But I don't have a problem with you deleting it immediately after, and I would never know because I'm never going to see it again. So that's what you'll do is you'll fill out that form, and those are the only difficult questions. That's why I went straight to the bottom. Let's close that down. Yeah, leave. I'm not saving those changes. Then you go to step 6, last few notes, and now we go to like the weekly course content for week 1. And I might in the future put all the weekly course content from week 1 in that very first thing, or just not even have a start period page other than it says go to weekly course content, and then all the stuff is here. So here's that stuff that I mentioned from earlier. There's it's in a slightly different order. Usually it'll be in order, but this time it's not. I start with the same stuff on the start here page in the same order. So syllabus quiz, intro, post. Then I actually inserted the reading stuff in the middle before the information form because I feel like people might try to do that last because of the video attachment. But note that the page numbers have not been changed here yet. I think I mentioned that earlier. I'll probably change it soon after the video is over, but you have 3 options for stories to read. You only have to write about one of them, but I suggest you read them all. But if you're pressed for time this weekend because a bunch of teachers did a whole bunch of stuff, you could always just read this one, which I provided a link for, or if you don't have a textbook access yet, and it takes you to this bit.ly link, and then the story is there. And you could read the story all online, make your discussion post about that story, and where you create your thread and you say, oh wow, this is how I felt about barn burning. I prefer you to like put your name in there. If you're going to say something like John Smith, assuming your name is John Smith, don't just make up a name. You'll do your 100-word counter, and I think I told you here, like, if you are watch where my cursor is right here. If you are typing, then Blackboard is keeping track of your words. So 12 words I've written so far. You're not allowed to just write that kind of stuff. You have to write about the literature. But like, tell me, like, how do you feel about the father of burning or Sardi, or do you think do you approve of the way Sardi now approaches the world? Do you think Sardi has changed? Those are all questions that would be really interesting to see. Somebody has already done the reading. It'll tell you that there's people who've done it. Now you cannot see what they've written until you create a thread. The reason is in the past when I let people see it first. These days when I have people create their own thread, almost everybody's threads are completely different. Some people have the same lame interpretation. And when I say lame interpretation, people will concentrate only on one word and miss the whole picture. It's one of the reasons I have a poem by Dickinson called Faith is a Fine Invention in blue, because people saw the poem. It says, faith is a fine invention where gentlemen can see, but microscopes are prudent in an emergency. Not meaning to be, I'm not trying to be rude or anything, but it kind of interestingly, I saw the other day somebody was wearing a mask that said faith over fear, which I thought was kind of ironic that you're wearing a mask that says faith over fear. And I understand the concept behind that, which is you're saying that it's important to be faithful, I think in God was what they're implying, instead of fearful of the world. But I guess I'd be more bothered by something like a person. I wasn't bothered by that at all, but bothered by somebody wearing a shirt that said faith over fear, and it had a picture of a mask on it, and they were very proudly not wearing a mask, because it's important to have faith that God will heal you instead of looking at science. However, she makes a good point, that poem Dickinson does, where she says, a lot of people just tell me, well, that's what that poem means, is like it's important to have faith in God, and that science can only do so much. But if you look at the words of that poem, that's not at all what's being said. It says faith is a fine invention. Faith, invention. Faith is something man invented? That doesn't sound very high on faith at all. Where gentlemen can see. So when you're able to see, faith is great. And it says, but microscopes are prudent in an emergency. So it kind of reminds me of like, back in the day, you'd have like faith healers, or you'd say like, somebody's really sick with like the plague or something, and you say, well, we're just going to pray. We're going to pray. We're going to pray. And somebody would say, well, I've come up with this new scientific method that might help people get better faster. And they're like, no, that's wrong. We're going to pray. Those are the people it's really talking about, is people who ignore science for the sake of saying we're going to just go on faith. But if you even look at the verse in the Bible, it's Hebrews 11:1 says, faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. There are things in this world we can see, things that we don't have to have faith in if we're just willing to look at them. It's almost like somebody says, oh no, I have faith in what the Bible says, I'm not willing to read it. That doesn't make any sense. If it's something you can see, look at it. So it doesn't make a lot of sense to have that sort of approach. And you can see why I would get very frustrated, because people have these mistaken concepts of the poem when they just read one word and go, oh, faith, I like the word faith, so I'm going to make that my entire focus. And there's reasons I have it where you can't write about certain things. But for the most part, people write completely different stuff this way. However, back in the day when I made it where you could see all the threads at once, guess what happened? People would go on there, they would look at somebody else and what they said and go, well, hey, I don't even have to read it now. I can just make up some version of this. And I could easily tell that people were just copying off of each other or trying to pretend like they knew what they were doing. But without concrete hard proof, I said what I'm going to do instead is just realize that I had a bad policy, and in the future just change my policy or the way that it works on Blackboard, so that, essentially I played myself, didn't anticipate, and the best thing to do in the future is just deal with what I'd done and change it for the future. And I actually did that mid-summer semester. I said, guys, it had been where you can see your people's posts first, but I always told you to make your post before you look. Found a way to make that happen. And the whole class was like, because they all realized in one moment we all have to actually do the reading now. Oddly, the quiz grades got better too. They were much more, it's so strange. They were happy to do a discussion post that was a copy so they wouldn't have to read and then do badly on the quizzes. And they were upset when they had to do the discussion post for real and do the actual readings, but then it made them better on the quizzes, and they seemed more disappointed with that, which that's why teachers sometimes we have to make the tough decisions and do the things that people won't do for themselves. Wow, so great. I just feel like that sounded stupid, like what I said. Like I said, it made me sound like I have this important job, and I really do think it's an important job that I have, but you know, I don't have to necessarily bear the weight of the world, even though sometimes I feel like I have to. Okay, so I had a cool idea and I had to write it down. Next is, let's go down. We've already done the intro post, so we'll skip back. And that's just that's the discussion post of the literature I'm talking about there. The intro post was above. Then after you've done that, if you haven't filled out the form and finished it, you can. And at this point, I assign the evaluation synthesis essay. So at this point, you can click the link, and it'll take you actually to the same place you will submit the assignment, but I have also attached both the PDF and the Microsoft Word document for the assignment. I suggest if you're just looking at it to download the PDF version, but if you're on a computer and you want to use the doc form as a template, you could actually, if you download it as a doc format and opened it, you could then just edit this name out, change everything up, change the story title, and make this yours. And so you don't have to get all the formatting ready. It's kind of already ready for you. But let's talk about what this essay is and what it needs. So there are 3 of them all assigned at once. It's important to remember this for the future. There is evaluation synthesis 1, fiction, 2, which is Antigone, and 3, which is poetry. One's due week 3, one's due week 5, one's due way over in week 10, which is almost the last week. The reason is because we'll have covered all the fiction by that point, or pretty close. Antigone will be done by that point, and then the poetry for the course will have been not completed, but mostly completed by week 10. So you'll have a nice amount from which to write. These are super easy papers. The way I described a discussion post, where it's kind of like you just talk about what you found intriguing or interesting, this is the same concept, just expanded into an entire essay. I don't want you to ignore everything I'm saying past this in the video, so I'm just going to scroll down here and highlight, what's the length, Nichols? What is the length? 600 to 800 words. If you look down here, this sample paper, 684 words, only 2 pages double spaced, so it doesn't have to be much. What you're going to do is pick one of the assigned literary readings. It's got to be one of the ones in green. And it's got to be for the first essay, anything before Antigone. And for the poetry essay, anything after Antigone. The second essay must be written on Antigone. And that's in terms of the evaluation synthesis essays. That means that you actually cannot write your critical analysis essay over anything you've already written about for the evaluation synthesis essays. So as a result of that, you can never write a critical analysis essay over Antigone, which would not be a good idea anyway, because that paper is very specifically dependent upon you reading a story in the language in which it was originally written, because you're talking about why did an author choose a specific word. And Antigone is, we're reading it in English, which is translated by Robert Fagles from Sophocles' original. So there would be no way for you to do that right. So evaluation essay 1, or evaluation synthesis essay 1, the fiction one, which is another word for, just fake, or, poetry is rhythmic speech, like songs or poetry, where everything is rhythm based and there's rhyme and there's musicality to it, whereas fiction you generally use to refer to prose that is a fake story, something that's made up, but the books you read like Harry Potter or like movies like Titanic, those are considered fiction. In our case, it's short fiction and the ones that I've assigned. So what you do, and it's a very simple assignment really, you're going to be responding as a reader to that particular reading. You'll identify your opinions on the reading and how you responded to it, then evaluate those opinions and responses. And I want you specifically, this is what makes it a little more difficult, is I want you to discover why you think what you think about the story by synthesizing the opinions you have and responses with the knowledge and experiences of your own life so that you can discover how your opinions in the work of literature have been shaped by your life experiences. Basically, I'm asking you, what did the literary reading mean to you? How did it make you feel? Those are important to start with. Then, how did your experiences shape the way you read the story? I'm basically wanting people to try to respond honestly to the stories, and then after they've had that response, identify their own biases. Because I think it's very important in this world today. We're inundated a lot with social media. It's going to sound strange. There's one form of social media I use, and I use it because it doesn't actually feel like social media. I don't use Facebook except to like my wife's posts about our children, because she posts a lot of pictures there, and it's easier sometimes to do that than it is to have her share them directly to me on my phone. And she wants to have that pop up year after year and show that, oh, remember this, and and then I try to immediately get off Facebook because I'll often see something that makes me angry. It tries to show me things that make me angry to make me stay, because if I'm angry at something, it's realized that I will respond. So once I see my wife's stuff, I get off. Instagram I don't use. Twitter I don't use. I used to use it to follow Big Brother, the show, but I don't really anymore. I don't use Snapchat. My wife likes to watch TikTok with me, but that's less social media as it is consumption media. You just sort of consume it, and it's not specific to the people around you. It's more like a broad spectrum, and it's almost like TV but smaller. It's like watching a television show where the only show you're watching is tiny little videos that are very short. It's like, why would anybody watch Quibi when there's TikTok, But my main source of social media is Reddit. The reason I like Reddit is because people post links and funny pictures and things, but I can unsubscribe to things I do and don't like, and it won't show me things from other subreddits. Additionally, it has both an upvote and a downvote system, so people say, I really don't want people to see this, then they can vote for that. Unlike Facebook, where it only has a like button, or shades of liking. But that kind of lets me, and then I don't have to read what anybody says on that website. I can just go straight to the article. I'm subscribed to professor type things and all kinds of different, it's better than Facebook groups, because sometimes groups will have their own spin depending on where you are. And I want to have one place I go for each thing. And if I'm interested in Big Brother right now, TV show's on, I can go to the Big Brother subreddit and look at what they're posting. You don't have to, not everything is political everywhere you go, so you don't have to get angry about everything. It's a really nice place. So that's what I mostly use. I don't use social media because social media manipulates your opinions. If you've noticed that the people in your life, a lot of them have suddenly turned into intense social justice warriors, who are hell-bent on making sure that people don't get triggered. They want to cancel out people who have done bad things in the past, and cancel culture. And I'm not talking about sensible types of canceling, removing Confederate statues, which I think is a sensible idea. We're in America composed of a diverse group of people. Some people feel it's a painful memory having somebody essentially praise this statue of a person that used to cause great harm to your family down the line, because this country does have memory. But I'm talking about things like, 20 years ago, Kevin Hart may have said something about gay people, and his opinions changed widely since then. He has apologized since then, and yet people, when they discover it on Twitter, they want to make him apologize again. Well, now we've discovered it, so you have to apologize right now and make it a big apology. And he's like, I've already done it. You're trying to push this cancel culture narrative, and so a lot of people are being pushed into that vein of things where everybody's really going super far left. Other people, the same opposite's happening, where you're going super far right. Where you see people who are suddenly interested in these broad conspiracy theories, and Trump is a savior sent by God, like an angel or something. Or the moment you hear a phrase like Black Lives Matter, you're instantly just thinking, well, all lives matter. Or people who are sharing that post about the kid who got shot by a black neighbor, and they say, well, why is nobody pissed about this? Well, they were. The guy got caught and arrested. That's exactly what's supposed to happen. It's less about what lives matter. It's more about the the statistically outsized number of black people that are killed by police greater than white people. I'm not talking about in numbers. I'm talking about percentage of population. And when people say things like, well, I mean, there are more criminals that are black, so they're going to get shot more. Well, that's misunderstanding, because a term like microaggressions, while I think some people might think it sounds a little bit leftist, I like to use it in a different way, and I don't think this is how it's meant to be used, but it's like little things that stack up. So like a woman gets nervous, so she calls the police, and that happened on a guy. She said, well, there's somebody in my neighborhood, I don't know if they're really supposed to be here, but that's just because he was black. And then the cop arrives, and most of the perpetrators that he catches in a day are black. Or he seems like maybe half of them are, even though it's only a small portion of the population. He feels like, well, they're more violent or something like that. And so he starts to profile this guy. And this guy's angry because he was just minding his own business. So he starts to elevate his emotions. And then the officer thinks, well, he's being emotional more so than my white counterparts. But there's been research too that shows that you're more understanding of things that white people do if they're part of your own race. There's actually a study that was shown that white doctors and black doctors were more likely to prescribe life-saving interventions and medicines to their own race. Not because they didn't believe in doing so for the different person, but because culturally, racially, they felt naturally when they met the person that they would have more in common with them. And as a result, that subconscious, I probably have more in common with this person, meant they were more likely to open up, ask them questions about their life. That person would reveal information that made them go, oh, well, maybe you do need this intervention. It's just those little tiny things that sort of stack on top of each other have added up to things like there's been all kinds of research that shows that black people are more likely to serve more jail time for the exact same crime than a white person. You might say, well, sure, but I mean, like, what about like where that person was from or their income? Actually, when you isolate for, I believe, income and where that person's from, severity of the crime, the circumstances surrounding the crime, all of that stuff, a judge is more likely to sentence a black person. Their bail is more likely to be higher. They're less likely to be left on their own recognizance, and they're more likely to serve more prison sentences, all for the exact same crime, and less likely to be found not guilty by a jury. So that's very interesting that you'll have the same scenario isolating for all variables, and yet still a black person is more likely to serve time, not get bail, and all that stuff sort of adds up to, you would say, well, cops are more wary because they're more likely to have criminals that are in prison, but it's because of other reasons that have nothing to do with the crime itself. You're going to have more white judges who are more likely to let white people off than they are black people because of the same problem with the doctor, where you look at somebody and you think, I have more in common with them, I'm more likely to open up, figure more about them, and somebody else is another. And that just sort of all stacks up on top of each other. So there are people on the far left on social media, people on the far right on social media. The truth is it's probably somewhere in the middle, but the social media leads us to the extremes. I actually saw, unfortunately this is just in a trailer, I would have to do the research to find out if this is true, but there's a trailer for a movie on Netflix called The Social Dilemma, and it said that there were some people who were working for these companies and they got really worried, and some of them quit because one guy said he found when they were doing their research that fake news was 6 times more likely to be shared than real news. I think because fake news is engaged in what used to be called back in the day, way back in the day, yellow journalism. I believe it's like the kind of stuff that's just meant to grab your attention. It's actually been a long time since I looked up that definition. Let's just say that it's meant to grab your attention. Sometimes you'll even look when you see the headline, it's a bombastic headline. But then, isn't that a song? Mr. Bombastic. Yeah, I think it is. You will see a really like big headline, you're like, whoa, and you would click the article. It's a lot tamer than you thought it would be based on the headline. But people often see an article title and share it just based on the title and never have read the article, which is very shocking and very sad. And a lot of times those articles that are put out there on social media, the faker ones, the ones that include details that aren't true, there was a big problem this last week where a bunch of people were sharing this sex trafficking thing where like the cops in like Georgia or South Carolina or something had this big sex trafficking sting where they saved like 69 kids who were all part of a sex trafficking ring. Turns out that's not true. That wasn't what happened. There were even police unions and stuff that were sharing it. But it's so easy to be taken in by this fake information. You almost don't blame the people who are, because it's part of our human psychology that we would share this kind of stuff. It's not really our fault. It's just the only thing we could do is get off of it. But what really happened was it was 69 children in different situations all across this program where they were trying to, they celebrated that they were able to locate and put in rehabilitation or start treatment for 69 children. It might have not been 69, it might have been a different number, 68, 64. But they were in all kinds of different situations. Some came from foster homes, some were homeless, some were selling themselves for money or a place to sleep. That was only like 10 of them. A couple of the ones were actually running away because they were suspected of murder. All kinds of different situations these kids were involved in. Violence, aggression, introversion. Like, the people just runaways. I mean, so they were trying to locate these kids and place them, and they found 69 of them or something like that. But people for some reason turned it into a sex trafficking story when only I think there were like, they said like 6 of them, 4 of them were suspectedly involved in sex trafficking, and it wasn't like we think where it's a ring of them. I think only 4 of the people in the group had what would be called a pimp, somebody who is involved, but they were mostly doing it independently just to survive. Very, very strange, like that, how the stuff shared on social media will change like that. But as a result of living in a world like that, it's very important that we find, identify, and recognize and operate on the assumptions that we know are personal biases. Because oftentimes, like me, knowing that I'm an educator, I will have biases for things like being an educator. I have family members who are law enforcement. I know that they're going to be biased toward law enforcement type stuff. My dad is a business owner, so he's biased in terms of those ideas that help somebody who owns a small business. And one of the things he hates doing is paying taxes. Same with my brother; he owns his own small business. But I have multiple educators in my family as well. It makes holidays interesting. We generally, well, everybody else tries not to talk about politics, but I love talking about politics because I just find it really interesting. I don't get angry. Everybody else kind of gets angry, and I'm just like, wow, that's neat. Because I've always been sort of a theoretical guy and talking about like ideas and stuff. But if you can figure out what your biases are, then you won't be as likely to be held subject to the effects of those biases. So, for example, there's a story that we're going to read, I think, next week. I'm going to try to fit it in, called Story of an Hour. It's a very short story. It's not even an hour long. It's more like 5 minutes. It's like 1 page long. But there's a woman, and she finds out her husband's dead. She's very upset at first. Then she realizes she's really not that upset. She's actually kind of happy that she's now free. It's very clear, though, that he is not manipulative. He is not mean to her. He does not beat her. She just didn't realize that she didn't like the institution of marriage or what it does to her. And then at the end of the story, it turns out he's not dead. He walks to the door, and it freaks her out so much she panics and has a heart attack and dies. And it says at the beginning of the story she has heart problems. So it's like it's what the sample discussion posts were about. But when I read that story, I'm more sympathetic to her. I don't think she's a monster. I think that she, as somebody who personally, I love getting to have independence and the freedoms, and there's not a whole lot of problems I have to deal with in the world. I'm not the most attractive dude, but I was able to get like a whole bunch of, and I'm getting more attractive the older I get, because when you get the gray and the beard and like your face starts to get those wrinkles, for some reason that really works for guys. But I also am a little overweight, but that's more by choice, sort of. I just like food. I can get thin and have before I can lose about 50 pounds in a couple months, but overall, I don't have to deal with a lot of discrimination on a daily basis because I'm a 6'2" white male. The world is generally tailored for me. The only issue I have is being left-handed and liking to read. There's not a whole lot. You're like, you like books? Kill him. Burn him at the stake. He knows how to read. No, I'm kidding. But so like the world is sort of made for me. I don't really have a lot of difficulties there. But I have daughters, and I see their, the struggles, and I'm very conscious of, like, there are other people who I've heard girls say, like, I always thought I was bad at math, and it was just that people had told me, like, you must not be good at math because you're a girl. And I was like, I don't know. Because as a single father for so long, with my daughter, I noticed very quickly she was good at math. And I was like, wow, she's good at math. And I was like, you're so good at math. Like, it's amazing. And I would kind of let her play with whatever she wanted to play with toy-wise. Like, I never really tried to steer my kid in a particular direction. But that is, I guess, something that people have difficulties with in the world. I liken it to being an English teacher and always reading stories. And so I would see the experiences of other people, different perspectives, and it made me more understanding of the different perspectives of others, which is why I think I became so sympathetic, was that and understanding that I have a very independent wife, an independent teenager, and extremely independent toddler daughter. And those three daughters who have been made up in my life most of the time. Very sympathetic with their problems. The discriminations that they might experience, and I don't want them to be discriminated against. I want them to have the same freedoms that I have had. So that has affected my bias. And I would put that in the paper. I would say that I am sympathetic with her. I understand why she feels this way, and here's why. And that's kind of what I want you to approach on the paper. Now, if I read this sample paper real quick for you, and I won't want you to spend time summarizing the plot. That's irrelevant. I want you to relate to specific details, show that you read the story, prove to me you read the story, and then at least briefly talk about, like, what it is that caused you to feel the way you felt. This guy actually does a little bit shorter of a job than I would feel comfortable with of that, but he still does it a little bit. So this is a story called The Birthmark, where he kind of summarizes it well in the first paragraph, but he says, I'm going to read this. In Nathaniel Hawthorne's story, The Birthmark, a man marries a woman with a small red birthmark on her face. Georgiana, her name, had always liked it until her husband Elmer grew to hate it over time. Since he was a scientist, he actually became obsessed with thinking of the ways he could remove the blemish so she could finally be perfect. But I think he misses the point of perfection. That almost sounds like he's giving me a thesis, but on this paper, it's really not that important to have a thesis. I know in 1301 you heard thesis, but this time it's not that big a deal if you don't have one. You can kind of go all over the place in this paper. As long as you are relating to your personal experiences at some point, it's fine. He says, and I'm just kind of skip this paragraph. I don't really think this is as relevant because he's talking about, like, how a dream made him hate the birthmark, and he said, no, it's his wicked heart that made him do that. And I don't know. He doesn't really cover anything that important there. But he says, Elmer's helper may not have displayed wisdom when he said, if she were my wife, I would never part with that birthmark. He wasn't a scientist. He thought the birthmark was minor and wouldn't want to remove it because he liked the way she was, how unique it made her. The birthmark was minor, and you have to look past it for who she is as a person and not just something on her face. Aminadab, unlike Elmer, understood that. And at the end, he says, towards the end of the story, Georgiana states that life is but a sad possession of those who have attained precise degree of moral advancement, which I stand, being what I find myself. Methinks I am of all mortals the most fit to die. And then this student says, it's ridiculous that she is willing to die over someone else's perception of her birthmark. In the beginning of the story, she found it to be so essential to her character, but at the insistence of someone who finds fault in it, she is suddenly willing to risk death to remove it. Life is way too short to stress over something so small, as I'm well aware. In high school, I worried about what people thought about my body type or whether I was overweight. In the end, nobody really cared, but it brought me a ton of undue stress. Granted, it's not a huge explanation, but it does give me a detail into his life that he dealt with something where he felt he was being judged for some visual quality, and he thought that she shouldn't be having to deal with that, or put so much weight on what other people are thinking. So he says that. I could have sworn I made a change on the summer version of this assignment, like the sample essay, because I wanted it to work a little bit differently. Let me see if I did, because I was like, I feel like it should be written slightly differently so it's a little more accurate for the students. I may change that if I notice that's the case. Let's go to the summer class. I could have sworn I remembered making an edit. So we'll check that out. I did edit it back in July. So I'm curious if that edit involved an edit of the paper itself, or if I just fantasized about editing it. I can't recall, because I thought I said I know the student wrote it, but yes, I did make a change. So if we look here, I'm actually going to change the sample paper out with the one that I have here, because this, I remember I was like, I knew that I got rid of that paragraph I said is not really that relevant, and fixed it. So firmly on the side of Helper Aminadab, toward the end of the story, and then life is way too short. And he said here, next, largely it was this one girlfriend that I had briefly that got me worried about it. She kept telling me how I should lose weight when we would go out to eat, and I'd get more food than her. But she was like 5 foot tall, and I'm 6 foot tall. Of course I'm going to eat more food. She kept telling me that people were going to start dismissing me because I was overweight and talking behind my back. Later telling that she actually had heard some people say stuff. So just because I was overweight and talking about behind my back. Later telling that she actually had heard some people say. And I broke up with her when she cheated on me, though. Everybody consoled me and told me she sucked. Turns out she was the one who ended up having people talk bad about her behind her back, and she was taking that on him. But he wanted to like use that to say that like he was in sort of a similar situation where he was being judged for something that he had done, or he was, and it turned out that she was the one who really deserved that on judgment. It's kind of like he's implying that the girlfriend's kind of like scientist. He's cheating on his wife with the concept of getting rid of the birthmark. And then, let's see, is this the same? Yeah. He also talks about, and you don't have to do this, and I prefer you not do this if you can help it, but he wanted to relate it to other stuff he'd seen. I changed this paragraph, so I added some stuff that aren't. That's one of the reasons it sounds kind of goofy. I didn't want to make it perfect, so I worked hard to make it not sound perfect. Over the course of the story, I also found myself becoming increasingly irritated over the importance placed on science of humanity. That is a big key in the story. He's more concerned with getting rid of the birthmark that he can't think of anything else just to see if he can get away with it. It reminds me of Jurassic Park when the mathematician says something like, everyone was so sad to think about whether or not they could that nobody took the time to stop and think about whether or not they should. They were like, we can make dinosaurs, let's do it. And then nobody said, wait, but should we make dinosaurs? Like, that's probably not the best idea. Hawthorne really encapsulates this idea throughout the story, since Elmer has no justification for risking a human life to see if he can achieve something. This also reminds me of Gattaca, another movie I watched all the time when I was younger. In that movie, everyone has the ability to choose what genetic features they want their children to have, and it calls into question whether or not humanity should have the right to choose what features, like eye color or birthmarks or even mental retardation, should be given to their unborn children. The movie basically decided that no matter what genes people are born with, whether or not they're supposedly inferior genes, they're equal as people in reality, and Elmer might miss that point, but Hawthorne definitely intends for us to see. Sorry to get a drink. So, that is the essay. I actually shortened the word count on the paper to make that addition and get rid of the other paragraph. So it's 659 words. The grade is a 98. And I don't really need you to include your word count. I will know how long it is just by looking at it generally. And also I like the idea that it shortened the paper, got it closer to that word count that I'm talking about that you need for the paper. So, once again, talk about interesting ideas you saw in the story. And you can see these were pretty specific sounding. It wasn't just like, I loved how there was imagery, or I loved the setting. And like you just say like, the setting was so beautiful. And it reminds me of a time when I went to the beach. And then you spend the whole way we're talking about the beach. I really want you to spend about at least 30 to 50% of the paper talking about the literature. No, that's actually way off. Change what I just said. I prefer that you have a 70-30 balance. So 70% of the paper is talking about the literature. Maybe you weave it in with your own life, but I can at least say, well, 70% is talking about the literature, and then the last 30% would be only talking about you. Because if some people will like use the story as a way to touch off and then talk about themselves for the 90% of the paper. I don't want that. So that is that paper, and that's going to be due not this coming Friday, but the one after that. The earlier you get it in, the better, though, because let me go back over here to the actual paper. Where is that? Yeah, I think I'm gonna switch that out and then upload it again. So, in fact, I might just show y'all because I'm gonna do it anyway. I don't want to forget. So, watch this little movie magic here. So here we go. Watch some magic. We do a little snafu refresh. And then if I go back to the assignment page, I've actually changed something. So it's back here as PDF and whatnot. But I added a little bit to that paragraph that I just read you because I thought it was a little confusing, and I didn't want it to be confusing, and I wanted to add like kind of a summative statement, like how it relates best. About being worried about the weight. So She was 5 foot tall. I'm 6 foot tall. Of course, I'm gonna eat more food. She kept telling me that people were going to start dismissing me and talking behind my back because I was overweight. Later, confirming that she actually had heard some people say stuff. I broke up with her and she cheated on me though, and everybody consoled me and told me she sucked. Turns out she was the one who ended up having people talk bad about her behind her back for being a cheater, and nobody ever actually had a problem with me. So it's best to judge your own self-worth, not let it be dictated by those who have no business judging you anyway. Which I thought related better to what the scientist was doing. So I wanted to add that kind of summative statement to show why I was relating that part about being overweight. Not that just I went through something that reminds me of this, but like I went through something and reading the story helped me kind of form a full thought about my experience. You know, that's kind of one other way I want you to approach it. So to show why you think what you think, as well as help you evolve in your thoughts. It does change the word count to 694, but I think that the paper is much better as a result of that addition. So that's the paper you're going to write. It's very simple. Let's go back. We'll hit, don't really need to hit cancel, even though I'm going to. It takes me to a different area of the course, which I haven't made available yet, but go back here to week 1. So that's the essay assignment. I didn't put it here yet. I'm going to put it here in the future, and it's going to be on the side, the Launchpad stuff related to this code pack that you have to do. Here in the syllabus calendar and resources, which I need to add the word resources there, but there is a link to the Launchpad instructions that work the best, but it basically says go to Blackboard and click out to an assignment from Blackboard. So once that's available, you'll be able to click out, pick like the pre-test that we have, and then it will ask you to create an account after you've you've allowed pop-ups for this one website. And that's a different thing. You create an account and you'll sign in. It'll be linked with your Blackboard because you were in Blackboard, click something, and then took you to that website. And that's the real way that you should need to sign up. The advantage to that is that every time you do an assignment, it'll bring those grades over from Launchpad to Blackboard, which is what you want, because then it'll be figured into your averages and stuff. So we're not doing that quite yet. I just wanted to mention that it is coming. And I think that for now, that gets us where we need to go. The plan next week is to... I need to update that calendar as well. That's one of the reasons to start here is the best place to go to. And then this video will be in that spot once I get done with it, which you would know because you're watching it right here. Let me see. Yeah, I think that's about it. That gets us started and through the first week with our first essay. Lets you know that we're going to hit the ground running when it comes to literature, that you don't have to read all the stories this first weekend. You could just read one if you want to get started. There is an online link for it too, which is really convenient. And I've actually done that. If you look at the calendar, you can see that I've done that for the first... In fact, I think I do it for almost all the weeks up until... The first 3 weeks it's done until Antigone. Why am I scrolling down? I can just go to calendar, boom. So there's barn burning in the first week. Good Country People in the second week. There's Paper Menagerie in the third week. Antigone I don't have a link for. And then most of the poems are in this section. These switch around a lot in the textbook because permissions change a lot. And so this time I had to add an online link here, switch out a poem there. I'll have to go change quizzes and stuff too. There's a bunch of onlines that I had to use for Dickinson and Frost too, and then I had to add Love Song. So I'm sorry there's a whole lot of online ones as well. I went with stuff in the book as much as I could, but there's some really good stuff that I like to cover, and I would like to change not too much stuff in this type of semester. So I feel like the more the changes, the less on my game I can be. So just so you know, I do have a little bit of online option in every single week so that those discussion posts, if you were one of those people, you're just in one of those really destitute situations and you're really struggling as a result of everything that's happened, or even before that, there are options. So you're still not going to be able to do the quiz as well because you won't have access to all the materials, but some of you are having to choose between grades and surviving, and I get it. So if you have any questions, you can let me know, email me. I'll be responding to some emails tomorrow. because it's Friday and I won't have a class to teach, and I might record some more video. I might even do like the second video for next week for each of my classes, but I'm not 100% sure if I'm able to do that. Because I've already got a big video recorded in my 2 main classes for the week. There's not necessarily a reason to record any more videos, or sometimes that video is going to work better than the actual videos we took. And I know that y'all probably want to have something where you can see someone's mouth moving and it feels normal and the video is a lot nicer. I actually like the color tone that I've got on this Logitech cam, if I can show it. I've worked to make the colors have it look a little more washed out. I've noticed that when I do the natural look, my face comes up very red and very flushed, and this looks more like, I think, maybe it's because I'm partial to Christopher Nolan's movies, the guy who made Tenet, The Prestige, Inception, the whole Dark Knight trilogy, Dunkirk. I really like that guy's movies, and so the washed out look kind of matches his tones, which I feel like it kind of, I don't like very, very high contrast stuff anyway, and I kind of like things where the brightness is turned up. I don't know why, I've just always preferred that. I do it on TVs, everything. Well, what did that say? Maybe having performance issues. Oh, it's because I was switching windows. That freaked me out. I thought it broke. So please tell me I'm recording video. Good. I think that's about it. I think that'll get us through this first week, and through the first weekend if you need to go back and take a look. I'll try to remember to make an announcement about this. Don't forget, best to buy the textbook from the bookstore if you buy the textbook super soon. This is the correct one. And also I made changes to the syllabus and the page numbers as a result of those things. I hope to get this video edited tonight at home, and then I will get it rendered, and then I'll try to get it posted. An announcement made about it. But we'll see. There's a whole lot of stuff to do. My wife is pregnant. I'm taking over a lot of the duties with the toddler right now. And as of right now, I actually got to go and get dinner. And my wife is a hungry, pregnant woman, so she wants her food. It's now 5:20 in the afternoon, so maybe we could do that. If you guys need anything from me, once again, email. Best way to contact me. I'm going to stop the video. Have a great weekend. Get your stuff turned in. Reading quiz, intro post, information form. Start thinking about the assignment, discussion post for literature. Read. Bye.